I didn't quite follow everything, so I'm kind of trying to get up to speed with what's happening. But I wanted to thank my son. He's a senior in high school. He's the chairman of the YAF. He's sitting right over there. He is brilliant. He's the one that kind of turned me on to the podcast. I really enjoyed listening to sound speech, taking out some of the vulgarity, but
we're in a college.
You know,
I mean,
yeah. So
nobody would understand me if I didn't drop a bullshit once in a while.
Okay. My main question was going to be the role of the church and in the founding of our nation being so great. You being Jewish, I'm a Christian. I'm a devout follower of Jesus. I was able to get to the front of the line because I told him I was liberal because I'm a follower of Jesus. And he was one of the most liberal human beings, God in the flesh, human man that ever walked the face of the earth. He helped people, all of that good stuff. So, one other thing to caveat into this, how you reconcile the role of the church and in influencing culture.
Sure.
And also the fact that I grew up in California. It's known to be a more liberal state of our nation. I lived in Tampa, Florida for 3.5 years, worked for Hillsborough County, and I used a whites-only bathroom while I was there in 1995. It wasn't being used as such, but I don't know if it was the coloreds or the whites, but I asked the bailiff if I needed to use the restroom. I wasn't familiar with the courthouse. He said, well, we usually use the one, there's no sign on it, go in there, 1950s fixtures or 40s. Looked across the hall, there was a men's restroom. I said, this is interesting. I grew up in California, I'm living in the South. So I walked across the hallway, 1950s fixtures. So I think kind of balancing out the fact that there has been injustices in our country.
Yes.
You can't go back and change that, but you can tell those people that are living a victimized mentality that, look, yes, I understand because I don't know which of those whites or colors or whatever, but my wife grew up in Cuba, and I can go on and on. Answer the question, but I really enjoyed it, but
a couple of things.
Go ahead.
As far as the role of the church in American society, your first question. My basic philosophy on this is that the government exists to preserve certain basic rights, and then you have social institutions that need to provide the safety net for the rest of society. So I'm very much for a strong church in regards to communal life. I mean, I belong to a synagogue. I believe that if you fall on hard times, then that means that the first thing that you need to do is go to your family, and then the second thing you need to do is go to your church, and then you go to your local community, and then up the scale. The problem that I see in society right now is that people go to the top of the scale, the federal government. They don't bother with anybody lower down on the scale, which is why you see this consistent growth in the federal government. Judeo-Christian values, as I have said 1,000 times, are the root of the civilization and cannot be ripped away without collapsing the civilization on top of it. As far as the idea of the existence of past racism in the United States, of course I agree that's true. I mean, I said that right in the speech. Obviously I agree that slavery and Jim Crow were some of the worst evils perpetrated by human beings. I mean, they're truly, truly evil. The question now is, we have people who are living now who have not committed those sins. Do we punish them for the sins of their fathers, in other words? And is the best thing to do to teach an entire generation of young black people, for example, that America is inalterably racist, inalterably bigoted, and they're living in a country with such a brutal history of racism that they cannot rise, because that actually is false, backwards, and hurts them. That's my main philosophy. So you can understand when people say, listen, I mean, as a Jew, Jews have had a long history of oppression also, but that doesn't mean that I think that anybody owes me anything, and I don't think that it's appropriate to teach children that somebody owes you something as a general rule who have not done anything to you. I think that if somebody's done something to you, then they do owe you, but if they haven't done anything to you, then they don't owe you anything. And if you build a system based on you having to rectify mistakes that were made by your grandfather, we're never going to get beyond this. We're never going to get beyond this because we all sinned against each other's grandfathers.